Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Passion, Purpose, Profit. This is a podcast where I get to talk to some really amazing wellness entrepreneurs. And I have one of those today, a guy who is a big deal in the retreat world, a big deal in the Southern California wellness world, a guy who I met actually through a friend who has a retreat property. And now he has his own retreat property. So a lot of really cool synchronicities, and excited to bring on John Block. John, thanks so much for taking a few minutes, man, and jumping on. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, John. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So I want to jump in. The first question that I ask everybody, a lot of us on this wellness journey, a lot of us on the entrepreneur journey are no secret. We are no stranger, I should say, to challenge, to heartache. So I want to jump right in. What is the biggest challenge? What is the biggest heartache? What is the biggest obstacle that you think that you've overcome to kind of get to where you are now, whether personally or professionally, or maybe they're kind of mixed?
I'll take you back to when I had turned 30, and that's when I first got into personal development. And in this seminar, I got this clear hit that I was meant to shift from doing music and arts festivals to now transformational seminars. And I put on my first transformational seminar, and I bombed so horribly at this. It was just an evening workshop, yet the feedback was so vitriolic, where a lot of it has to do with me, where I was trying to get people to buy my stuff. And this is my new business that I had just started. And I was modeling after some of the other seminars I'd been to, where I was telling people, rush to the back table and buy the program if you want to be a winner in life. If you want to be a stuck loser, then stay in your seats. Choice is yours. So after this, I'm
laughing because I've been to those seminars.
Right? And when some men do it, and yes, it does tend to be men, they are successful in that setting. Yet when I did it, it was just so inauthentic and pushy and ego that no one moved at all. And people said to me afterwards, John, that was awful. And I'm never coming to see you speak again. And if anybody asks, I'm going to tell them to avoid you, whatever they do. Do not come to one of your events. And what was so hurtful about that, and if you're listening, I invite you to see if you ever had an experience where you get this intuitive hit, this knowing that you're meant to be doing this thing, and you do it, and then the feedback is horrible. And you're left wondering, was I wrong? Was that just a complete false hit? Should I not be doing this? Because you're worse off than if you had not done it in the first place. And in my case, I thought maybe I shouldn't even be an entrepreneur at all. And I really was entertaining this notion of going back and getting a day job, which for me was waiting tables at Applebee's. That was the last time when I was 23, was when I had a job. And I thought, well, that's not so bad. Maybe I could go back and get my job at Applebee's. My biggest concerns would be, do you prefer ranch or blue cheese with your hot wings? I can manage that, right? People are going to be appreciative of that kind of service. I can work my way up to assistant manager, maybe regional manager one day, and just have a solid paycheck coming in. I really was considering a job, whether at Applebee's or somewhere else. And it was something I would have done, except for this inner knowing that I just hadn't had the success yet, but keep on going, that there was some polishing that needed to happen. And this is one reason why I so believe in mentorship and having the right community, because I humbled myself enough to get specialized coaching and mentorship. In this case, it was speaker training and workshop training. And that's when things really cracked open for me. And I've been on this entrepreneur journey ever since, of hosting events, bringing people together.
I love that. And so I would love to know a little bit more of what is the skill set? What is the tools? I mean, you mentioned coaching and mentorship, but we could definitely dive down that rabbit hole, and I want to. But I think for a lot of us, we get stuck between the head and the heart, right? Like the head wants to make maybe the Applebee's decision, the safe income, the easy paycheck. I'm not going to have to overthink this kind of thing, right? But then the heart, right, you said, is the knowing, right? You knew that there was something else left on the table for you there. And kind of what was your process, or maybe what were the steps that got you into that space more easily to kind of listen to that voice? And then maybe who were the mentors or people that maybe accelerated that and took that to the next level?
Yeah, well, point out something that I think is missing oftentimes, which is that listening to your heart is not a blank check situation where you get to just listen to your heart and then trust the universe. There's spiritual bypassing that tends to come in, and anyone who's been around spiritual communities probably recognizes what I'm talking about. To me, listening to your heart only works when paired with being an action taker. So knew myself to be an action taker. I knew myself to quote Chumbawamba, I get knocked down, but I get up again, right? Ain't never going to keep me down. So that's how I move through life. And I figured if I took that quality and paired it with listening to my heart, that success was inevitable. It's timeline. As far as I'm concerned, that's up to the universe. Yeah, I knew the success would be inevitable. Then it was a matter of getting the right mentorship and community. And at the time I was doing personal development seminars, and it occurred to me, and someone kindly pointed out to me at a personal development seminar, that actually you need a business/personal development seminar, one that would develop both. And I firmly believe that any business development seminar, they better design the personal development aspect of it. So in this case, what is your relationship with charging, with receiving money? What personal limiting beliefs are you carrying with you? To be able to unpack as much of that type of stuff as possible if you're going to be charging more than you have before, or actually receiving the money that you're out to charge and playing a bigger game. So I'm really grateful that the mentors I had at the time were specialized in helping coaches lead workshops and create packages that were really reflective of the money they wanted to make.
Yeah, I think it's such an important fork in the road moment for a lot of us who are in the health and wellness, and far be it for me to say the spiritual development space or self-development space, where the idea of like manifesting all of your dreams and manifesting a big bag of money is just holding the vision of it, picturing it in your bank account, and then you open your eyes for meditation and it's sitting at the base of your bed kind of thing, right? And I think use the word bypassing. I think there is a complete lack of, like, you got to say your prayers but then move your feet. You've got to put stuff into action, and you to seek out mentors, and for you to actually step to the plate and take a swing and miss so badly, right, is something that a lot of people don't even get to that step, right? They just think it's all going to fall in their lap. And so I'm curious, like, what would you say to somebody who maybe has gotten up to the plate the way that you did, swung and missed, and then had to really kind of reformulate or rediscover your belief systems, or maybe even change or completely blow up your belief systems? What was kind of your process of, maybe with a mentor or on your own or both? How did you kind of dissolve some of that hurt or that failure feeling to then be able to get up and step up to the plate and swing again?
Well, there's a quote I like that says the definition of happiness is progress. So if we can find some comfort in knowing that we're further along now than we were a month ago, a year ago. 1 year tends to be a good, look how far I've come. So if you look ahead a year ago and say, have I developed more skills? Do I know more people now? Am I stronger in my leadership than I was before? Then the success is inevitable. There has to be this inner knowing that you're heading in the right direction. There's also the matter of the suffering or challenges, like to recognize like what kind of challenges are worthwhile. There are people who are Olympic level swimmers, professional bodybuilders, where they endure the pain of discipline and maxing out, and they choose that because their identity is that of an Olympic swimmer, bodybuilder. And I really admire that. And that level of rigor and discipline tends to be missing a lot with retreat leaders, anyone who has a spiritual, vocational aspect of it, where there's too much indulgence on like, well, I don't feel like it. There was a period of time here at our compound before we turned it into the Ark, the retreat center, where I was having roommates here, right, in the house. And I had two spiritual women as my roommates. And their influence is rubbing off of me. I was doing push-ups and I got to 5 and I stopped because I don't want to force things. This doesn't feel like it's in flow anymore.
This isn't in flow.
So I'm not going to do that 6th push-up, right? Because I don't want to force things, so then I'll block my blessings, right? And I reflected afterwards. I'm like, that is so lame. Like, where is the sense of grit, right? And that masculine energy that's called for. And, there's a reason why masculine energy is aligned with business for the most part. It takes something to do that. And traditionally, sports are as well. And there's obviously a lot of successful women in business and sports, usually because they're activating the masculine side of themselves. So I always ask people to be like in the inquiry, as I am myself, my masculine, feminine energies, like which is showing up. Am I conscious about what I'm creating? What's called for in this moment right now? And just to get everyone on the same page, if we were to say like a father, mother, that can representing those energies of like a father, it'd be like the mentorship, guidance, and structure, call you out when you're being stupid or lazy, right? And then maternal energy would be like compassion, like how are you feeling? Are you feeling nourished right now? As fully functioning adults, we have to self-parent and be both for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think creating that sensitivity, I call it like the seasons, like the same way nature works, right? There's a season of dew, there's a season of rest, right? There's a season of abundance and growth, and then there's a season of death, decay, cold, kind of the reset process. And I constantly direct people back to themselves when they're asking questions about personal development, retreat leading, whatever the case may be, right? Is like you only know that inner compass for yourself. And I'm curious, like, what kind of, because you have a lot of different things now that you've kind of put into your stratosphere. I mean, the retreats, the programs that you're leading, coaching containers, owning and running a property. Like, how do you kind of find the balance of like when it's time to do, because you said the Chumbawamba thing, it's like you could get knocked down and keep going and going and going, but like how do you like take time sometimes to just like know when it's time to maybe reflect or rest? Or for me, it's like I struggle with like I get an idea and I want to do the whole of it right away, but sometimes I need to like put it down for a little bit to get clarity with it, or just to kind of refine the joy in it. So like, how do you sort of find that litmus for yourself, or how do you really practice like finding what the right balance is?
I love this question because I arrived at a real workable answer to that just in the past like half year or so. And this is reflective of a problem a lot of people have. I mean, I think what you're pointing to is really important, that people do not have this sense of integrated wholeness around like the excitement about what they're doing, and then the like seeing the bigger picture, how they're managing all the pieces. So one is the definition of work, where if we think of a context like a corporate cubicle where your work looks a certain way, and if you're doing anything other than that work at that cubicle, then you're goofing off. So if you're going for a walk outside, right, that would be considered not working. I can't speak to that context, right? However, in our context, that is work, right? If you get up and go for a walk after being at the computer for an hour and a half, which is actually the amount of time that anyone's meant to sit and do any one thing, hence why movies are about that like the time. So you do the work, say crank all your emails and catch up on all your DMs, right? Like that could be a 90-minute block of time that you do, right? Post something, see what else is going on, right? Maybe one other activity. That's a 9-minute block of time. Then you take a 15-minute walk without your phone to reflect on what you just did and what's called for next. And then when you sit back down to do work, you wouldn't go to your car and then think, well, where should we go right now, right? You'd have a destination, hence why you would be going to your car to begin with. The same needs to be said about sitting down at your desk. Know what you're going to do before you sit down, how you're going to be using the next 90 minutes of time. I also recognize when I'm getting too heady. And so there's times when, yes, taking the walk to clear the mind, meditation, and watching something. Like I watch TV and movies very strategically. And for me, as a film background, like I have a real love of like getting swept up in story, and it has the way of like, if it's feeling really heady, I could just put on the fight in Rocky IV between Rocky and the Russian, and it puts my problems in perspective, right? It shifts the energy for me.
Yeah.
Right? With getting hit in the face repeatedly by the Russian who's a foot taller than you. And then if he can get through that, then what am I complaining about? and then I'm ready to get back into it.
I love that. So I want to go into your story in a second, but I want to do a quick touch point because I think about this a lot. I think about, having a job, like you said before. So many people will trade a lot of their freedom, right? They'll trade a lot of freedom of time. They'll trade a lot of freedom of even what they love to do. But because I think you get the structure, right? You get I don't have to guess what my job is or how long I have to do it for. Like, these are the challenges I face as an entrepreneur, right? I have this mechanism of like, I do things and then I love them. I find the passion, I find the purpose, and then I like drive myself into the ground overdoing it. And then I lose the passion and love for it. And then so the profit kind of struggles, it's like, because I can't continue to operate in that same sort of gear at all times. And so I love what you just said, because that's really a helpful, balance. But I'm curious, like, take me back to like the origin story. Take me back to like how you got to where you are in terms of like, I know it's film school, I know it's producing events, but then how did you shift into wellness and all the things? And just tell the like listeners like what it is that you actually do and give us that background.
I think it's important for anyone who is hosting retreats to have a deep love of bringing people together, especially for in person. I roll my eyes at the term virtual retreat. So when I mean in person, and to have a very clear sense of what can only be experienced in person. And for me, it was throwing a high school party, and I was 16. And I had the good luck of having a decent sized house and parents who traveled a lot for work. So one night I decided to throw a party for my friend's birthday. And we invited everyone from our class over, and I got drunk for the first time. I'm like, this is so much fun. And we invited people from all the different cliques, because that was something else that bothered me is, why is it like a prison yard in the quad where you have, unlike by race, it would be segmented in a prison yard. Like here, it's the jocks, the academics, right? The theater kids. And I thought this was just such a fabrication. There's no reason why we can't have a good time together. So partly satisfied my own curiosity, we invited everyone to it and saw people having conversations for the very first time in all of high school. And then come Monday, having lunch together for the first time. And it's what I would refer to now as unity consciousness. Like this is the stand of having unity consciousness on the planet, which I believe that retreat leaders can be a little more Martin Luther King-ish in terms of their stand. That oftentimes light gets dampened because they think, oh, people don't want to know that. They want to just come for a relaxing, rejuvenating experience. And I would say the world needs your leadership. So what is your version of I Have a Dream? What are you standing for? That just like how Dr. King had his rallies, it was inside the context of a dream, gain, and realize of ending racism in America. So what is the dream that you as a retreat leader are producing the retreat to help realize, right? And then everyone who's at the retreat is part of that as well. I may have deviated from your original question because I'm not.
You're good. I'm fascinated by what you're saying. So, well, for me, it's great. But I really, so you launch that first party, you get that bringing people together is a really powerful thing. Jump me off then to like how that transcends into where you eventually got with self-development and now building the companies that you run.
Yeah. I always had the love of movies. So then the decision that I made after doing that party in high school was I was going to be a filmmaker, right? I went to Emory Business School for my first year, hated it, liked the parties, but my business classes, I'm like, this is not my scene. Partly because higher education, and this will shock no one, is trained to put you into the machine. So to work for the Matrix, to have a job. Had it sparked there was some strength finders process to activate my entrepreneurship, would have been a different experience. As such, I went to USC Film School, where once again, to be a cog in the machine, in this case, write your screenplays for years, get paid nothing, hope that an agent manager will represent you, or still you don't get paid anything until your something actually sells, which is statistically not very likely. And if it does sell, it probably won't get made. That's the journey of a screenwriter. And I saw that my journey was a lot more entrepreneurial, which it took quitting screenwriting to really recognize that doing events was the last thing that brought me joy. And I love that I didn't have to wait for gatekeepers to make it happen, that I wasn't dependent on agent, manager, producer, studio to realize my vision, which I put into screenplay form, to being on the big screen. There were so many things in between that it struck me as a half-lived life. And especially seeing how AI has taken over like filmmaking, it seems like these scripts are being mass produced, are AI written, many of them. I mean, all the great movies have already been made, as a side note. So I'm so glad that I decided that being an entrepreneur in charge of my own destiny and cultivating my own voice through the music and arts events. I started going to art shows in San Diego. Like Ray at Night was a big thing, the second Saturday every month in North Park, which was just establishing, it's just like how they call it the Soho effect, where it was this artist living in the neighborhood, started putting on art shows. So I started going to those, and I said, I love this. I love the energy. I love the community. So I started putting on events and grew to blocking off streets and, you know, multi-stages, because I was going to Coachella a lot around then too. This is the mid 2000s. I'm like, I love this. I would do my own version of this. Tough way to make money. The perks were excellent. I love being like man about town, but tough way to make money. And this is informed directly my viewpoint on retreats to this day. After doing personal development, like, how am I not successful yet with doing these festivals? Like, that's what led me to do my first personal development seminar.
I'm doing all my affirmations. I'm doing all my journaling.
Yeah, well, at the time, I was just like, what is wrong with me? It was so broad. And I took the summer to figure out what was wrong with me. And one of the things that came to was that this industry that I was in wasn't really the right one for me, and that this transformational seminar was really what I wanted to be doing. And this issue of not having a back end offer. And the seminar world, where it's a common model to do a 3-day in-person event that would upgrade to a 1-year mastermind. And you know, we allude to this whole like rush to the back table and buy stuff and all that, right? So that kind of world, which has its tawdry aspects to it. However, as a business model, just makes sense. Give people the opportunity to experience you for 3 days, see what you're about, see who you surround yourself with, see if the direction that you could take them in is something they want to go, because you can only do so much in 3 days. And then if you want to go further, join the 1-year community. And this has informed our approach with retreats, is that this is a way to get a taste of the leadership style, of who is in the tribe, paint a picture for where we can go, and then it's game on from there. And those who work with us at our highest level, Entrepreneur Mastermind, they get this. This is what they want to do. You know, they have their retreats in various niches, from Tantra to grief. Our mutual friend, Tim Ringgold, right? We're very proud of him, how he's created Radiant Ascent as his tribe for those who are creating longevity after a loss, right? That's an ongoing journey after losing a loved one. Come there for the 3 days, get the healing, correct it once possible, and then join the tribe.
So connect the dots. When you did that first speaking engagement, was it like a day sort of event, the rush to the back of the table that flopped? That one was like a single day event?
Yeah. It was a 1 day.
Gotcha. And so what was your like reframe or learning to then go into, then you went into 3-day model after that? Or what was like kind of the next progression to the next step for you?
After getting the mentorship, it occurred to me, well, they told me that I needed to focus on my one-on-one practice. And that was a real like head trip, because I saw myself as an event creator, not as a one-on-one coach. Yet from a business standpoint, and this is a good example of how sometimes you just got to do what's best for the business. And the very act of sucking it up is part of your evolution as a leader. Again, spiritual bypassing will prohibit this from you. Just like I couldn't get past 5 push-ups, it'll say that, oh, I don't feel like being a coach, and then talk ourselves out of it. But at that point, I was considering the JOB very seriously. So having a full one-on-one practice where there be no overhead, just phone and a laptop. That's all you need to have a successful one-on-one practice and be earning $10,000 a month. So it's like, win that game first, have a full one-on-one practice and earn $10,000 a month, or at the very least like $5,000 a month. So you could be doing this like full time. Back in like 2010, 2011, you earn $5K a month. You could be doing that full time. So that was the measure. And then once I hit that, then I took the one-on-one clients and I got back to what I was really passionate about doing, which is the multi-day in-person events, the same ones that transformed me when I participated. I did all Conscious Business Summits, brought those people together. The second one of those, I made another offer that bombed horribly and had to go back to my one-on-one practice. It's just sometimes that's just what happens.
Well, right? I love this because it's like the inverse of what I did, which is I started running retreats with really out any one-on-one connection. I mean, I was teaching yoga classes, right? So I was kind of using that as a way to funnel people into my retreats, but had no idea. I mean, I tell this story all the time. Like when I launched my first retreat, I had no website. Venmo didn't exist yet. I was literally taking like envelopes of cash from people or checks, like back in the day. Like that's how for those that are young out there, that's actually how we moved money back in the day. And yeah, I mean, I just was totally winging it. And now only within the last year have I really stepped into, wow, it's actually the teaching part. It's the facilitating the connection one-on-one with people at the retreat that I actually really love. And then how to give myself permission that I could ask for money for one-on-one coaching, right? But the barrier to entry in terms of, like you said, it's a laptop, it's a Zoom connection, right? That then you could just jump in and do that work. But it's so fun because there is no one way up the mountain, right? Like your passion led you to a couple swings and misses. And then the residual is like, you found the teachers that resonated. You found the messaging that you needed to find for them to nudge you into one-on-one, which ended up kind of establishing your beginning business. It's like, sometimes we have to do the thing we need to do to get to do the thing we want to do. And I think that was for me, like teaching 20 plus yoga classes a week and having to literally burn that mechanism out to say, holy crap, I need a break, right? And then inviting other people to take a break with me. And oh my God, this is called a retreat. This is what I do now, to like growing it to like over 50 retreats. So I love that. I love that, as the passion unfolds and as the necessity becomes more clear, then you can find your way into both, right? The thing that you love to do, but also the thing that, obviously you were pretty successful doing the one-on-one stuff because it grew and grew and grew, and then eventually gave you permission to, do the retreat. So tell me about Retreatpreneur, because that's, I think, kind of like our biggest sort of way that we've been connecting over the last 6 months. What does that look like now? Is that you kind of taking the story of all of this and piecing it together for people so they have a playbook, or is it still the inner guidance stuff, or how are you kind of structuring that? And tell me about that company, because I'm fascinated by that.
The purpose of it is to really give a safe place for retreatpreneurs to be fed and nourished, and they can let their guard down and be in a really warm, nurturing, supportive environment by people who get it. We're all veterans of the same battles. And to really acknowledge that the industry is shifting pretty dramatically in terms of, we shared earlier before this recording about how you're upping your game, which is wonderful. Right. And that's what's called for now, to be more specific and to be upping our game as leaders. So Retreatpreneur Mastermind, through our retreats that we host, so our entry level is called Retreat to Legacy. We host 2 per year here at the ARC, which stands for Abundance Retreat Center here in San Diego. And that's the entry points are these 2 3-day events. We have celebrity guests like Doria Cordova, who's the founder of Money and You seminars. We have Marie Diamond from The Secrets. We had Larry Namer, founder of E-Entertainment Television. Just some of the people we've had come through here. And then we're talking to a lot of other people like Yannick Silver, Giovanni Mersico, like big community builders at a high level. And it's a place for everyone to really own what their stand is, who is passionate about in-person retreats and creating true community, right? Or we call it tribe, because tribe is like in-person versus, say, a Facebook community. And that requires then to make it as sustainable as possible. And it's a very supportive network where people speak at each other's events, make introductions in real time, they collaborate, they rise together, they fall in love. we're very proud of all of it.
That's so amazing. And, you know, the fact that you've built a place for people to come together in person, I think as the world is sort of leaking more towards digital and artificial intelligence, and, you know, the thing I hear the most as a retreat leader is, yes, breath work and meditation, all these other things, cold plunging that we do at the retreats are valuable, but I strip people's phones away and force them to really connect with each other. And I think that is becoming more of a rarity as the days go on. I mean, every single day, I mean, I feel like we're losing that tribal, like you said, kind of feel. How important do you think that's going to be for any wellness entrepreneur going forward, whether they're retreat leaders or not, to get their people to come together? Like, can you forecast that, or do you have any kind of feelings about like what that's going to look like for folks that are listening, that are like building their wellness business and wondering about what they should do in terms of like in person?
You know, I mentioned Martin Luther King Jr. earlier. So one of his quotes I love is that the moral arc of the universe is long, but ultimately bends towards justice. So the moral arc of the universe is long, but ultimately bends towards justice. What does that have to do with this? If there is a moral arc, it is around human connection, authentic human connection, away from pretense, really dropping in. Something I believe in is that if you knew somebody's story, really, you couldn't help but fall in love with them. It's impossible to not fall in love with someone you truly know their story. And as we look to the fighting on Facebook and the polarization in our country, to me, it's all a function of not knowing each other's story. We put a label like Trump supporter or Kamala supporter, and then that's all that person is for us. It's actually sick and twisted that we do this to one another. Retreats are the antidote to that, because those labels can't last very long in a retreat environment, right? It just can't, you know? So having more retreats, this is why we're taking a stand for retreatpreneurs, because when there's more and more retreats on the planet, those labels shed. And I do believe in my heart that, and I've had enough conversations like this where people are saying some version of amen, brother. I'm sick and tired of that too. You know, we're at a nice generational range right now where there are people, like I'm 45 right now. So there are people who are older than me who vividly remember the world pre-internet, right? I remember the world pre-internet, but people who actually like made their success in life, like pre-internet, and they see where things are going and saying, hell no, I don't want any part of that, right? Like that's a madness, right? Those people are really valuable anchors. And this is one way in which America in general could be doing a better job of honoring the wisdom of our elders. That's one reason why we have Native American wisdom keepers come to some of our retreats to be spreading their wisdom. Monsi, my beloved partner, she's from India. My mom's Chinese, my father's Jewish. We have deep roots in like these cultural traditions in which elders are really revered in a bigger way, right? So that, as we see it, is what's called for. And, you know, I think that the even though it's not as loud as the latest IG influencer, there's been too much evidence and conversations I've had that have backed up that people are craving this wisdom, this groundedness, this reset, this nervous system, how they just want to think clearly away from all the noise. And that's perfectly suited to coming on retreats.
Yeah, I think it depends on where you look, right? Like, I think if you look at mass media or if you look at social media, yes, those voices are the loudest, the ones of dissonance. And I can say, because I came from a news background, I mean, I started this conversation with your most difficult challenge, because there's that phrase, you probably know it in the news, if it bleeds, it leads, right? If there's something catastrophic going on, it will get people's attention. If there is dissonance in the matrix, there will, you know, be an attention paid to it. But I think, you know, we've been fortunate to be exposed to meaningful mentors, meaningful community, meaningful, authentic, like you said, human connection. And so we know how vital it is. We know how important it is. And there are those folks that are out there that are sounding this bell, that are ringing this alarm, that are saying, hey, if we don't return to the essence of who we really are, which, by the way, everything great humanity has done has been built on the back of community. We're not the biggest animals. We're not the fastest. We're not the strongest. We don't smell the best, see the best. what we do the best is we actually work together. I always use the analogy, like when you wake up in the morning, everything that you do from the time you're awake to the time you sleep is on the backs of other people. The bed that you sleep in, built by somebody else. The house you sleep in, it's like for most of us, we get in a car, somebody else built it. We got on roads, somebody else, but like we're constantly benefiting, right? Our ease of life is constantly made easier and better because we get the help and support of others. But yet we flip open our phones or we turn on the news and we instantly forget that, right? But when you get a group of people, like I've had thousands of people now in-person events and retreat experiences, many of them probably had different ideological views about politics or race or trans or whatever. And by the end, they're hugging, they're singing, they're laughing, they're loving it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think one of the last things I'd love to ask you is how do we, as leaders in this space, right, continue to push that forward? But then I'm also curious of like how you balance that with making a living, with creating income through it too, because I think one of the things a lot of us struggle with in the space of bringing people together or helping others is that like, oh, you can't charge for it. This is one of the voices that like you can't monetize it or you can't build it. How have you personally and with the people that you work with, how have you been able to build that for people?
Well, there's a lot there. So I'll speak to the first part. There's a quote from Gandhi where he is quoted as saying, I have so much to do today. I have to go to these different appointments and do all these things on my list. So I have to meditate for 2 hours instead of 1. Right? And that to me is a really good reference point for the more chaos there is in the world. The bigger our to-do list is, the more important is the ground as a human and especially as a leader. So I have little patience, to be honest, for leaders who don't do their inner work. Right? Who think they've gone to some point, and this is why academia feels stuffy, right? Because, well, one, the work is not transformational in nature, even though a lot of it should be transformational in nature, right? And the leaders themselves are not humble enough to recognize like what I don't know, to be consistent in that inquiry, right? And that truly is being wise versus being smart or clever or intelligent. Right? Like wisdom is really what we're after. This is from King Solomon on my Jewish side, right? It's very much an inspiration for me to be seeking wisdom. When it comes to charging, this is such an individual journey because it requires nuance and customization. There is that knee-jerk response of, we spoke to, I don't want to charge so much because then people are going to be excluded and then I'm going to price myself out of the market and then I'm going to have no people. So I'd rather have some people than no people and then I'll address it later, right? Where you start is where you start. So if that's where you start, it's better than doing nothing, right? You're on the court. Yeah. So I think the limitations of that are pretty apparent, right? That, you're an expert on this topic, right? Around the amount of work that people who pay less tend to be. And then the sense of like, okay, what is the real unified direction that we're going in? It feels like not the tightest container possible. And then sometimes people go on the opposite side, which is this chest pounding, charge what you're worth, right? And I just can imagine at this point, like rallies where there's this like kind of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad kind of mindset. Charge what you're worth, or like Fight Club, right? The kind of like repeating it. And I'm mocking it a little bit because anything that's one note and is that customized should be mocked, right? Because what people do is they'll say, all right, well, now my service costs $10,000, right? And they go from like, say, $500 to $10,000 because they're all pumped up and like, yeah, this is what I'm worth. And they have all their litany of reasons for why I studied under this person or whatever, got this certifications, right? And then people don't buy as much as they like. Now, sometimes they do. And even that may not be the ultimate victory. There might be some kind of pyrrhic hollowness to that victory because now you got to deliver the thing. And are you really holding the vibration of that $10,000 delivery?
Or you're just trying to sell it.
Exactly, because that's
Yeah.
something else that is really enough of that already, right? In the industry,
Mm.
I made $25,000 coming out of the seminar, or $150,000 at my first event. So what? That's the beginning of the story, not the end,
Yeah.
right?
Who did you actually serve? How
Now,
did you actually
that's the
change
way down.
anybody?
I know about that part too, right?
Yeah. 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 And I've done the inverse because I've given a lot and I've given a lot of value to folks, but then I really struggle with like asking for what I was worth. I think another piece, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is like, if you're going to charge more, if you're going to charge what you deem to be a lot of money, whatever that looks like for you, do you have a clear purpose as not only to the why you're charging it for, like what the money represents to you, but are you also like focused on what's the actual value and transfer? Like the universe is a reciprocation machine, right? So it's like, are you actually in alignment with what you're going to be able to give to that person in return? I think those are two things. That's like the almost self-coaching. It's like, that's the two things I think I kind of had to figure out for myself. I'm curious of like, if that resonates for you.
It definitely resonates, and it's such a ubiquitous issue. I'll use the dating context here because there's so much parallels there in terms of the dating analogy. And people, for the most part, have been on the court with dating since their first crush at age 12, longer than they've been entrepreneurs or hosting retreats. So people have figured out more stuff around dating that they could then repurpose for how they show up in business.
Mm.
In dating, if you're going to make that work for you, you got to know what your boundaries are and what your yeses and nos are. So as a man, for instance, there were times when I would just keep calling and texting and trying to get a date going before it occurred to me the profound lack of self-respect that was happening, right?
I'm laughing because it's like it's hitting me right in the chest. Right? I feel that so intimately.
Right? Like I've not found one exception to a man who hasn't known some version of this experience where you realize that you're calling and texting and it's all one way going out, that you're not getting the energetic reciprocity, and you realize, what am I doing here? Right?
Yeah.
So that's one example of recognizing, like, okay, what are our minimum conditions? Or if someone does say yes to you in the dating analogy still, right? They say, I'll go out with you, but my first availability is in a month, and I can only do like a tea. I can't do like a dinner together, right? And meanwhile, you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna do like this nice dinner. We can go out in the next week, maybe 2 weeks. They're like a month, and then they haggle you down to a tea, right? Knowing oneself, it could mean that, like, you know what? Forget this person. That's a clear indication they're not the right one for me. If that's how they respond, I don't care how attractive they are, how excited I feel, like that's a misalignment piece right there. And I'm going to just send this one out to the universe, right? And just see what happens. But I personally am no longer considering my business. It's God's business at this point. So when it comes to charging, then we have to do our own inner work and determine what is the price point that we deem that if someone can't see this, they're just not our person, right? And it has to fit the logistics of covering our production expenses, have enough for us to live off of, right? Have an ascension model where, all right, I need to get this much volume. Well, okay, volume first, right? And then what's the next journey for that person once we get in with a certain volume? This is all part of the business model, which we help people really nail down at the Retreatpreneur Mastermind. And then price according to that, right? So there is a process, like an art form, like, or craft really, to pricing. If we base it just on feelings, it's too flimsy. So just like with dating, it's a process to arrive at, like, where am I really standing in truth? And at times there could be some feeling based. When it comes to running a business, there's less feeling, let's face it, right? This is what it's priced at. It's more of a cut and dry thing.
I love that so much. I think you and I are so aligned in the way that the inner work, the inner knowing, right, is always still the compass. And that's, even as a teacher, is what you're advocating for people to do, right? Because that same person who's trying to get the date where it's a month out and it's only tea, that could be totally out of that could be totally out of alignment for you based on where you are in your journey and what you value, your time and your schedule. But for somebody else who's maybe just as busy, who's been dying to go out with this person, right? Whatever it is, right? They could be operating from a place where that actually is the perfect fit for them, right? That's exactly what they need at just the right time.
Exactly. So I really honor people, and it's not unlike saying, oh, I'll take anyone, even if it's not charging very much, but it's like a pay what you can type of model.
Yeah.
Get started. If that's where you're at, then we'll honor that. Sure. Right.
Yeah.
And it should be on the court. So if having that tea date 1 month from now is you being on the court because it's better than nothing, great. And let's recognize this is not the high point of you owning your power, that this is a work in progress, that you will,
I love that.
After you have that tea date and leading up to that tea date.
Yeah. And if you're like charging for workshops and doing sliding scale, but your overhead is low and your time freedom is high, and that's what matters to you, is going to the park with your dog every day for 2 hours and having a simple place to live, and you don't maybe need a car, whatever it is, like whatever the construct of your life looks like. That's why I say, for me, it's like, is the money that you're asking, is what you're charging a measuring stick of your own value and success? Or is it actually you honoring what's really true in terms of what you need in terms of resonance, necessity, how you want to build your life, how you want to structure? Because like, you could take a private plane to a retreat that you're hosting and feel totally in alignment with that. Or you could take, coach, and like, maybe that's what's needed too, right? It's like, it really is, man. It's about that inner work. It's about that inner journey. And I also love what you said too. This is circling back. I mean, you touched on so many good things, but the facilitators who are preaching something, who are teaching something, have to be anchored in doing it for themselves, like period, end of sentence. I think you and I both have been in this work long enough. Like, you can see it, you can smell it. People are more discerning buyers nowadays. Like, I think the days of like the fluff and just selling stuff is over. Like, I think people really know what they're looking for, especially in an in-person experience. So if you're listening to this and you're wanting just one little nugget to take out of it, I think both of us are kind of saying, if you're not really doing the work on yourself that you're trying to advocate for other people to doing, like, pause, stop, and go back to step one of like doing that and building that foundation, for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a both fact and a story that we can believe in because it supports a reality. So Martin Luther King is an example is someone really dear to us, as we look to as like a high bar of a tribe leader who used in-person events. And in his day, activism was it. And Michael Gerber, author of the E-Myth, said about him that the tragedy of Martin Luther King Jr. is that he was not an entrepreneur, right? Right?
That's
He did
wild.
not have systems in place to end racism in America that would outlive him the way that Walt Disney had systems in place to continue the Disney company, right?
And that's part of what I love about, I'm so sorry to jump in, but like, that's part of what I love about you, is it's like, it's heart-centered, it's real, it's about connection, but then it's like, how do you build the systems that most entrepreneurs, and especially wellness entrepreneurs, just lack? Like, they don't lack the structure, they don't lack, like, I don't know if it's that part of our brain doesn't fire or whatever, but it's like, we are missing that ability to build it and scale. That's why the podcast is passion, purpose, and then profit, because it's like, I want people to have all of those things, because that creates an ecosystem where now you are a fully developed, not only human being, but also business owner too,
Yeah. One of our friends, Sherry Tree, and her partner, Esther, wife, they have BANK is their personality decoding system. So BANK is an acronym: blueprint, action, nurturer, knowledge, right? So these are the 4 personality types, and it's similar to the DISC system. I like BANK in that I can very clearly see the personality types in the retreats transformational industry, where the A and N tend to be very strong, where the nurturer side, meaning that they love to nurture others and be nurtured, right? That N is very present for them. The A is strong because they don't talk about doing retreats one day, they do the retreats. They take action. And from a participant standpoint, they'll sign up and go to the retreats. Whatever action afterwards will vary, right? But they took enough action to go up to the retreats. The B in particular is what tends to be the weakest across the board for both the leaders and the participants. And that's why Monty and I will have a phrase to one another where we say, activate your blueprint.
Mhm.
This is what's required is the systems genius, because we all have all four parts of us, and recognizing that by nature, any of us who are in this space, if you're listening to this, you're probably in this space too, where A and N are going to be your strongest. Your B is probably going to be your weakest. So
Mhm.
activating your blueprint of your ability to create systems and structure, which is going to be deep work, by the way. You don't do it in between responding to text messages. This is like block out a Saturday, before you go out at night and say, that's what I'm doing. Headphones on, I'm going deep and like working on my business type of thing, right? Uh, People need this. So anyone who's providing a blueprint for others to follow will be successful. And commit to making your blueprint solid. Just don't use it as a marketing term either, right? Like some
Mm.
people, like truly, what is the blueprint? In this time where nervous systems are so dysregulated, the more we can provide a blueprint for people to walk into. I'm updating all of our templates right now for Entrepreneur Mastermind. Like I thought they
Mm.
were good, but it's time to sit down and really take everything that we've learned across the past few years of doing retreats and how the industry is changing, update them all, right?
Yeah.
Big
And
project.
that's the K, right? That's the knowledge piece.
Yeah, the K is the knowledge and the experience, right? And
Yeah.
you'll notice a lot with people who tend to talk a lot, right? Is that they like love sharing their knowledge about something, right? And there's a place for that as well, right? So like having the knowledge and studying, being an erudite for it. And then B is really about the creation of the systems that can be replicated by others. So
Mm.
McDonald's being like the ultimate example, right? Of like the system is what drives it, why that sustains. And I think we need more light-filled businesses who are not in that type of business, who are also activating their blueprint having systems.
I love that so much. And I think God willing, we're shifting that direction. And again, the reason why I wanted to have you on was because I know that you're a champion for this, and I know that you've been in the trenches and you've learned a lot of hard lessons about the struggle of entrepreneurs, especially wellness-based entrepreneurs. And I just think there's so much value in what you're doing and what you're trying to bring to people. I'm still trying to figure out how to take my business sort of side of things, not only elevate it for myself, but then I do want to be able to deliver this to others, because it's so incredible when you get to run a business that does feel like it's filled with passion, it's filled with that purpose. And then you also like get to pay your bills and live the life you want to live without a boss and without the job and out all the stuff that goes along with being in that sort of career or corporate life. In closing, I mean, I feel like we could go for 4 hours, but I'd like to tighten up and just finish on, is there one piece of knowledge, one piece of inspiration, one lesson that you feel like you've learned as an entrepreneur, that you feel like if you could summarize this kind of conversation and give one little nugget, one little takeaway to somebody, a lesson that you learned along the way, what would be one thing that maybe you could leave people with? And it could be just whatever's most pertinent on your heart right now, maybe something that's going on for you recently.
Yeah, I would say recently I've been reminded of the immortal words of TLC: don't go chasing waterfalls.
I like how we went from Martin Luther King to Gandhi, and now we finished and Chumbawamba. Let's not disregard Chumbawamba, but now we've tied it full circle because now TLC has entered the chat,
Yeah,
everybody. So
inspiration and wisdom is everywhere, gang. Make sure your eyes and ears are open at all times.
that
So
might be the soundbite right there. Inspiration is literally everywhere. Under waterfalls, behind waterfalls.
yeah, and what I mean by that is, there's a book I love. It's in my top 3, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill and Sharon Lecter. And
I'm reading Think and Grow Rich. What a synchronicity.
oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Bigger fan of Outwitting the Devil, so be sure to dig into that
On
one.
my list. Now it's on my list.
So in the interview with the devil reveals what his biggest tactics are. So the devil is not some red guy with a tail and pitchfork, right? The devil exists inside of each of us, right? And hijacks us. And the major tactic of the devil is what he calls drifting, right? Causing people to drift from their higher purpose. And if we start putting ourselves in high alert, which I highly encourage everyone to do, What are the factors that are causing me to drift? It could be social media. It could be certain people in your life who are trying to take you off your purpose. That doesn't mean these things are evil. It just means that you have a certain vibe, a certain container that you're creating called your life, and they don't fit in with that. So, distractibility, the cause of drifting, right? To really be on high alert with that. We opened up the ARC last year, and I'll just say this is really relevant for me because Monty said that giving John Block his own venue is like giving a kid his own candy store. And she's not wrong. I went a bit overboard with the events that we did. We did 9 events last year, some up to 5 days long, and it was all different topics that I was like excited about, right? Like conscious impact payments, how we can use film and television to raise conscience for humanity, land and legacy, how can we merge real estate industry with the wisdom of Native Americans and land, right? Have a conference on that. And we brought a lot of people here to the ARC. Worked really hard to design these events, to lead my sections, bring in the guest speakers. Did very little to grow our business, right? And I look to that, and the devil is so sneaky because it aligns with my excitement level. So do caution, dear listeners, of anyone who says, follow your bliss, do your joy, and everything will work out. Not in my experience. It's just incomplete. Merge that with what your business is. Identify what business are you in? Where do you make money? How do you create a lifestyle? And then bring your joy to that, right? And then it becomes an ongoing thing where you're going to do some stuff that ain't going to bring you joy at times, yet it's temporary. The more money you have coming in, more stable it is, the more you hire people, put things into place. That's the path. However, you got to discipline yourself first by knowing what business you're in. So don't go chasing waterfalls.
Oh, I love this so much. Like, it's so relevant for me right now. I have that. I have that devil who allows me to chase things. And it's funny because my whole journey with this started with yoga and with meditation. And that's really the practice or the science of being present, right? Of being in the moment of what you're doing. And I catch myself, with my phone. I mean, part of the reason I run digital detox retreats, the name came to me because I said, what do I struggle with? Well, I struggle with the amount of time I spend on a screen and how much of my bandwidth is just siphoned away into stuff that really isn't meaningful, especially without even getting into the weeds of like crafting a vision of who I want to be, right? And are these decisions and are these energy investments the process I do with people now where we look at their energy as like an investment portfolio. And I say, treat this like even more important than money, right? Like, where are you actually literally investing your energy? And when you really kind of look at it with people, they're shocked. I'm shocked sometimes of like how much bandwidth just drifts away to things that aren't moving me towards that end goal. You know, it's like, it's almost absurd. It's like, it's such a
I would love
easy
I
thing.
love what you're saying so much, because imagine a world where it was normalized to say to a friend, I'm not getting sufficient ROI from our relationship.
Yes.
So, ending it, right? I would say awesome. If someone told me that, I'd be like, I'm so happy you recognize that. Good for you. I'm inspired to look at my relationships more in this way. But so many people would be like, oh my God, I could never say that. That's so rude. It's so transactional, not heart-centered. To which I say, how's that working out for you? Being so heart-centered. Are you really creating the life that you want? Now, granted, I'm not suggesting that we tell people that the ROI from this relationship is here for us.
I was with you. I mean, I'm kind of already on board with it. So
I'm saying outright that I'm all for transparency. I mean, I'm cool with it myself. I'm like, call it this, folks. I mean, I love that. And at the same time, if you're not going to call it out, it is useful to look at every relationship, every activity. Like, what is the ROI? Is this making me smarter? Is this nourishing my spirit? Is this calming my nervous system? What is the ROI for this? Does this bring me joy? That's sufficient as well. And then it becomes like a percentage game too, of like, well, it's got to, some things have to grow your business. Some things have to bring you joy, right? Some things have to be improving your self-care, but be able to tie it to one of those things that truly matters to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is an absolute formula to having all of it where you can have the balance of things that light you up with things that are also difficult and challenging and hard. We're going to come back to it, folks, one more time. It's like it is the inner awareness, it is the inner journey, right? So, like, you lay your head on the pillow at night. Do you really feel satisfied with where you invested your energy for the day, right? But if you have no clear vision of what that even looks like or what's important to you, right, then it's like flying blind. It's flying with, it's like having your, your rudder taken out if you're in a sailboat. It's like you're not gonna be able to steer or go anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love that so much. I really enjoyed this conversation so deeply. I think, there is a movement towards meaningful, authentic, in-person relating. I think there's a possibility, and more than a possibility, I think there's a necessity for a lot of us now to feel like we are merging passion with profit. And I that was, again, my impetus for starting this podcast. Was I wanted to find people who I knew were doing that and really learn from them. And I know people that if they stuck around for this, they got a lot of value out of it. So thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, we've been on even longer than this, friends. We were talking for like 30 minutes or so before this even started. So there's so much wisdom, there's so much knowledge here. And yeah, just thankful for you, thankful for your journey and all the cool stuff that you're doing in the world and the impact that you're making, John. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And if you're listening to this, thanks for sticking around, and maybe we'll see you at a Retreatpreneur Mastermind.
Heck yeah. So all of John's info will be in the show notes in the episodes. Retreatpreneur, the ARC, ARC is where you can find him in Southern California for in-person events. And all his tags, links, all that stuff will be in the show notes and on all of our social media channels. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you again soon.